There is a narrative currently circulating, gathering significant traction within certain online investment circles. It centers on two specific currencies, the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong. The story involves entities called redemption centers that are supposedly activating, offering holders of these currencies the ability to exchange them at rates far more favorable than the established global market. If you are someone who holds either of these currencies, or if you have simply been monitoring this storyline as it has evolved over the years, it is critically important that you separate the emotional appeal of the narrative from the mechanical reality of how global finance operates. We need to dissect what is being claimed, what can be verified, and most fundamentally, what the underlying financial principles tell us about the likelihood of these events. This is not about dismissing hope, but about applying the rigorous scrutiny that all financial decisions demand. Let's begin by clearly defining the claim at the heart of this latest wave of discussion. The core proposition is that designated redemption centers, official or semi-official locations, are now becoming operational. These centers are purportedly where verified holders of Iraqi Dinar or Vietnamese Dong can present their physical currency for exchange, potentially at rates that would represent a dramatic windfall compared to the currency's current, publicly traded value. For individuals who have held these notes, sometimes for a decade or more, awaiting a seismic revaluation event, this is framed as the long-awaited breakthrough. The implication is clear: if your notes are authentic and your documentation is in order, you are now positioned at the threshold of an official process that could translate your paper holdings into life-changing sums of money. Before we analyze the mechanics, you must understand this crucial context. This specific narrative is not new. Its basic architecture, the promise of an undervalued currency posed for a dramatic upward revaluation, or RV, has been a fixture in these communities for well over 10 years. The persistent problem, however, is that this promise has consistently failed to manifest in observable economic reality. The Iraqi dinar has traded within a relatively stable, narrow band against the US dollar for years, its value tethered to Iraq's oil revenues and fiscal challenges. The Vietnamese Dong has not experienced a miraculous appreciation. In fact, Vietnam's central bank has historically managed its value with a bias toward competitiveness, not sudden strength. So, when the discussion pivots to redemption centers going live, the first and most vital question you must ask is, redemption at what rate ? This single question is where the entire elaborate narrative begins to unravel under basic financial scrutiny. If these redemption centers were legitimate components of a national monetary policy, they would, by definition, be exchanging currency at an officially sanctioned rate. But here is the fundamental truth: legitimate foreign exchange operate at market-derived rates. You can, right now, exchange Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong through conventional banking channels and licensed currency services. They are actively traded on the foreign exchange market. Their rates are transparent and publicly available. As of this analysis, the Iraqi dinar trade at approximately 1,310 to 1,460 IQD per US dollar, depending on whether you reference the official Central Bank of Iraq rate or the parallel market rate. The Vietnamese Dong trade at roughly 24,000 to 25,000 VND per US dollar. These rates exhibit the normal fluctuations of managed currencies, but there exists no indication, none from the Central Bank of Iraq, the State Bank of Vietnam, the International Monetary Fund, or any credible global financial institution that a massive, order of magnitude revaluation is imminent or even being planned. This leads us to the essential exercise of separating verifiable fact from persistent speculation. It is true that nations undertake currency reforms. Iraq has redenominated its currency in the past. Vietnam continually adjusts its monetary policy. However, the concept of secretive or exclusive redemption centers offering exchange rates that diverge wildly from the transparent global forex market is completely antithetical to how modern central banking and international finance function. Currency values are not altered through private, back-channel programs for select groups of foreign holders. They are changed through official central bank policy announcements, reflected in economic fundamentals, and executed through open market mechanisms. If Iraq or Vietnam were engineering a significant revaluation, the process would be public. It would involve their respective central banks issuing formal statements. It would be reported globally by agencies like Reuters, Bloomberg, and the Financial Times. Institutional forex traders would react, and the market would move in real time. None of these observable, validating events are occurring. What we are witnessing instead is a narrative that exists almost exclusively within a self-contained ecosystem of online forums, specialized YouTube channels, and private social media groups. This ecosystem has developed its own vernacular terms like verified, older, authenticated notes, phased rollout, and appointment protocols are used with authority. Yet, these terms are conspicuously absent from any official government communications, central bank bulletins, or mainstream financial reporting. This disconnect is not a minor detail. It is a glaring red flag indicating that the narrative operates in a parallel universe divorced from official policy channels. The practical advice often embedded within this narrative is ironically its most useful component, though it inadvertently highlights the real dangers present. Holders are frequently advised to meticulously organize their physical notes, verify their authenticity, maintain impeccable documentation, and, above all, avoid scams. There have been schemes demanding upfront fees for registration in fictitious exchange programs. Law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and consumer protection bodies like the Better Business Bureau, have issued explicit warnings about investment schemes related to the dinar and dong. So, the counsel to verify and protect yourself is prudent. However, and this is the critical pivot to verify currency through legitimate existing channels, major banks with forex desks, or professional authentication services, not through unverifiable redemption centers or online personalities promising access. To truly gauge the plausibility of this narrative, we must zoom out to examine the economic fundamentals of both nations, as these are the ultimate determinants of currency value. Iraq's economy remains overwhelmingly dependent on hydrocarbon exports. The dinar's stability is intrinsically linked to global oil prices and the government's ability to manage its budget amidst significant political instability, reconstruction costs, and governance challenges. These conditions do not provide a foundation for a sudden, massive appreciation of the currency. They suggest a path of gradual, hard-won stabilization. Vietnam's case is different but equally unconducive to the promised RV. Vietnam has successfully pursued a model of export-led growth. Its central bank actively manages the dong, often leaning toward a competitive I'd say slightly undervalued exchange rate to support its crucial manufacturing and export sectors. A sudden, dramatic strengthening of the dong would act as a shock to this economic engine, making Vietnamese goods more expensive on the global market. This is not a policy choice a growth-oriented government would make lightly. Furthermore, examine the structural prerequisites for a major revaluation. Typically, it requires robust foreign exchange reserves, low inflation, consistent trade surpluses, and deep economic stability. Neither Iraq nor Vietnam currently presents a profile that would logically precipitate or sustain the 1,000% level revaluation discussed in online communities. What is actually happening is more mundane, but more real. Both nations are engaged in the continuous, gradual work of monetary and financial system reform. This work is normal, slow, and technical. It does not involve special redemption programs for foreign retail holders. The psychological dimension here is powerful and must be acknowledged. Individuals who have invested significant funds and, more importantly, years of emotional capital into this thesis are subject to the sunk cost fallacy. Accepting that the core premise may be flawed is profoundly difficult. This creates a fertile ground for confirmation bias, where any new piece of information, however vague, is interpreted as validation that the long wait is finally ending. This explains the narrative's constant evolution. When a predicted date passes, the story morphs, it becomes a phased rollout, or access is limited to verified holders first, or the activity is happening behind the scenes. The goalposts perpetually move, preserving hope while the fundamental promise remains unfulfilled. This pattern is characteristic of financial narratives that survive on belief rather than results. Let's construct a clear contrast by describing what a legitimate, large-scale currency exchange event actually looks like. If a country enacted a significant reform that affected foreign holders, the process would be transparent and official. You would see a formal announcement from the central bank, covered by global financial news, wire services, coordination with international bodies like the IMF, published procedures on government websites, and a clear, publicly communicated timeline for implementation. The process would be accessible through standard banking channels, not exclusive centers. The current Dinar Dong narrative exhibits none of these hallmarks. Its information flow relies on sources close to unnamed reports and speculation presented as breaking news within the very community that is incentivized to believe it. This situation serves as a stark case study in financial literacy. It demonstrates how speculative narratives can become self-sustaining through community reinforcement and selective information consumption. Persisting in defiance of contradictory evidence from the objective world, you can observe similar patterns in certain fringe cryptocurrency projects or penny stock promotions. The warning signs are consistent: promises of exclusive or insider information, an emphasis on being part of a select early group, continually shifting timelines, a lack of coverage from established financial media, and most tellingly, a direct conflict between the narrative's claims and verifiable economic data. So, what is the rational path forward for someone holding these currencies? If you wish to exit your position, you may do so today through standard foreign exchange services. You will receive the current market rate if you purchased your currency from a dealer at a premium above this market rate, a common practice among RV dealers. You will realize a loss. This is the honest financial reality. If you choose to continue holding, you should frame it accurately as a standard high-risk forex speculation on the potential for gradual appreciation based on a country's economic improvement, not as a guaranteed ticket to a secretive windfall event. You must also accept the very real risk of further depreciation. Your due diligence process must be rooted in primary sources. If you want to understand the genuine trajectory of the Iraqi dinar, monitor the official website of the Central Bank of Iraq. For the Vietnamese Dong, follow the State Bank of Vietnam. Subscribe to alerts from Reuters or Bloomberg for news on these economies. These sources have no vested interest in selling you currency or maintaining a hopeful narrative. They report observable facts and official policy. Conversely, YouTube videos or forum posts claiming redemption centers or lives should be assessed against this standard of verification. Who is making the claim? Can it be independently confirmed through the channels listed above? What is their incentive? The risk extends beyond the potential loss of the principal invested. There is a profound opportunity cost to consider. Capital tied up for a decade in a static or depreciating asset represents capital that was not deployed elsewhere. Over the past 10 years, broad equity indices have seen substantial growth. Even conservative bond portfolios or savings accounts would have generated some return. The real cost of the RV narrative is measured not only in dollars spent on currency, but in the compounded growth that was sacrificed while waiting for a promised event that never arrived. In conclusion, the narrative surrounding operational redemption centers or the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong is not substantiated by credible evidence from the institutions that actually govern these e-currencies. It is the latest iteration of a long-running speculative story that has consistently failed to align with reality. The accompanying advice about verifying authenticity and avoiding fraud is wise, but that does not validate the underlying revaluation thesis. If you hold these currencies, understand them for what they are: exotic foreign exchange instruments subject to market forces and national policy decisions, not dormant lottery tickets. The broader lesson is one of foundational financial prudence. Any investment proposition that promises extraordinary returns outside of mainstream mechanisms relies on ambiguous insider knowledge and has been perpetually about to happen for years, should be approached with extreme skepticism. Protect your capital by demanding verification from authoritative, disinterested sources. In the world of finance, the burden of proof always lies with the extraordinary claim. After more than a decade of unfulfilled predictions, the evidence for the dinar, dong, RV remains entirely within the realm of narrative, not within the verifiable operations of global currency markets. Your financial security depends on recognizing the difference.